So far, only, well, let's call it 1.2 million Australians have been vaccinated, and we're 8 weeks in. How concerned are you, without even targets, looking at what we've achieved so far?
Well, I think everyone would look at it and say that it's disappointing to see, but we've also shared the journey. I mean, obviously the government was relying more heavily on the AstraZeneca vaccine. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of changes that they've had to deal with. But the important thing is to continue to engage with key stakeholders such as business and to be transparent with the community and actually start talking about how we can see a path to reopening some of these restrictions, because we just can't continue to push off forever the re-engagement with the world. We've got to work out how to manage that risk effectively and actually work out what we can do in stages that still manages the health risk.
In the absence of the things that you talk about this morning, what is business planning in terms of reopening to the world and just, I guess, internally? Is there still that fear of an internal lockdown like we saw in Brisbane 2 weeks ago?
Definitely still a concern. We'd love to see a much stronger commitment by the state governments to not close down state borders, particularly as we start to get most of the 1B population dealt with, because once they're vaccinated, that deals with all of the major risks for ICU and hospitals being overrun, which was where we were at the beginning of this crisis, was worried about that. Now we seem to be worried about one community transmission, whereas the governments have shown nowadays they can control that. So we've got to actually look at, say, well, where is the health risk? What can we do? The things that we'd like to see is further easing of some of the dining restrictions, the square metre rules, the greater commitment on state borders, start to see some cruise ships be able to come into the country in order to deliver domestic cruises. Expedition cruises into the Kimberleys. A lot of those Indigenous businesses up in the Kimberleys have been desperate for their customers to come back and are really struggling as a result. So let's start seeing some of those plans put in place.
Jenny Lambert, what does it mean in dollar terms at the moment?
Look, it's hard to estimate because obviously, we've got an economy that is at a two-speed restart. I mean, we've got a huge number of businesses going well and employment coming back, and we've got these businesses that are really struggling as a result of these border restrictions, particularly the international closures. So it's hard to estimate, but I mean, certainly we know that the international tourism industry was $63 billion a year to Australia. And so, without that sort of income, we keep saying, well, domestic tourism will replace it. It'll never replace it. International tourists always spend more in Australia, and they go to a lot of further. They go to a lot broader range of attractions and destinations. So we need to get a lot of that going, and we need to see that coming back.
Jenny Lambert, appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure.